Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for August 2024. This month wasn't spectacular, but it also wasn't horrible. I thought there were a decent selection of good games thrown into this bundle. Let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below. Be sure to check the timestamps for specific games, and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting off this month's bundle is This Means Warp, which is a cooperative roguelike game where you take the role of crew members on a spaceship. The game very much reminded me of FTL, except you control a single member. Well, sorta. So you can play this game entirely by yourself if you wanted to. There are NPC crew members you can recruit as you go through a run, which will do all the assorted tasks on the ship. Alternatively, you could assign them to a specific role or turn off certain tasks so that pesky alligator isn't constantly taking the ammo from me. But anyway, yes, you can play this solo, although I think the game is kind of lacking to really do that. Cooperative is much more fun, which could be true of any game, but here it's definitely the case as I'm sure the game was developed with that in mind. In fights, players will need to scramble across the ship manning the guns, trying to target the enemy ship and their various systems, while at the same time making sure their ship's various systems are kept operational and hull breaches are repaired. Outside of battles, there are various minigames that usually have you collecting something inside your ship, going on a spacewalk to collect something outside your ship, or moving into waypoints. It's something to break up the combat, but really the most enjoyable aspect is the combat. After each fight or encounter, you'll be gifted with upgrades for your ship, which could be big like new weapons or systems such as a repair bot, or you can get augments that you could place on your ship or its individual systems for improved passive bonuses. At the end of each run, you gain experience and hopefully unlock a few new things to then encounter in your next run as per usual roguelike gameplay. My wife and I both thought it was a fun little game, but also thought that it was something that we could do when we wanted something different and had nothing else to play. So, I don't know if that's the biggest endorsement for the game, but it was by no means a bad game. Next up is Universe for Sale, which is a narrative-driven point-and-click adventure game. The game primarily takes place on a Jovian colony and follows two characters. Leela, a young woman who can create universes and runs a shop selling them to people, and a person known only as Master, who is a cultist with the belief that they need to detach themselves from their life, which literally means detaching parts of their body and eventually their complete identity. Essentially, this game has excellent world building. I found myself intrigued by the setting and the two main characters. The writers did a good job making the world feel deep and immersive, yet also something that doesn't feel overwhelming for the player who is learning about it as they go. The colony itself has some competing religious ideas, along with the grungy lifestyle due to the colony's rugged state on Jupiter's harsh planetary conditions. And it helps that the art is really good. The backdrops and animations are all hand-drawn, with a lot of detail and a comic book-like presentation at times. The gameplay is fairly light though. Most of the time you're just walking around and clicking on things to interact with them or talk to people. There wasn't really anything in the way of an inventory system to track found items, or puzzles to figure out like is the usual standard in a point-and-click. There is a minigame you play as Leela where you create universes to specifications of the customers. Supposedly different shapes and ingredient combinations make different universes. It was cool reading about them and how those universes might be like, but it didn't really seem to be anything more than that. Leela also earns credits for her work, which she could use on aesthetic items for her house, but I'm unsure if the credits are used for anything else. Anyway, if the story or setting doesn't interest you, then I don't see why you'd play this. However, I enjoyed it and wouldn't mind coming back to finish the story. Diluvian Ultra is a retro shooter. Another one. Starting to feel like we get one of these almost every month like it had been with roguelites. At least this one is definitely better than last month's Hyperviolent. Here you play as a demon knight killing robots, I guess. I'm fairly certain you'll be killing humans soon enough, but I mainly saw robots and giant purple blobs for some reason. Anyway, it seemed like the developers wanted to throw Doom on its head and make the demons the protagonists. Combat is fast-paced, and there were an assortment of weapons that I got, although I felt like some of them were just really weak. And that seemed to be because certain guns were better against different kinds of enemies. Some of them will also have armor that only specific guns can strip away to line up shots, or a sword slash to finish them off. There's also an upgrade system which can improve your weapons as you collect enough focus points from the blood you get from enemies. On top of that, there's a lot of dashing around to avoid getting hit because your character can be quite squishy if he gets mobbed. This makes combat a dance as you zip around trying to avoid getting hit and lining up your next attack. The movement translates over to the platforming as well. Some of it was kinda tricky, which I didn't really care for. I'm not too keen on platformers, but I especially don't care for first-person platforming. It's just too difficult to determine depth perception and how far you're going to move, but I guess that's the point. I also encountered a bug that prevented me from progressing. I was looking all over where to go and I couldn't figure it out. You have this insect-like gun that could also act as a guide for you, but you just kept flying to the top of this large room, which was really confusing. In the end, I just looked it up and found out that a certain gun you needed to progress didn't spawn when I entered a room, causing me to reload from a previous checkpoint. Diluvian Ultra was just okay. I don't see myself coming back to this anytime soon, if at all, given that I have other similar shooters I'd rather play first. Following that is actually the roguelite for the month, being Astral Ascent. However, it's luckily not just another roguelite. I mean, it is, but it's also an action brawling game, which the easiest comparison I could give is probably Super Smash Bros. The combat here felt buttery smooth with the directional attacks, spells, and each of the characters' signature moves. I really liked how the two characters that I played felt different to play. Ayla felt more movement-based with her attacks and trying to evade, whereas Kieran was more aggressive and had a counter that if timed properly, you could have a nice riposte depending on what you had slotted on that move. Which yes, as a roguelite, you're going to come across random buffs, spells, and attribute gains each run, so if that doesn't appeal to you, then you won't like it. One thing about Astral Ascent that I really liked was some of the quality of life features it had, such as before choosing a new spell, it lets you preview it before buying it so you know exactly what you're getting. And I also liked how it would tell you who to check in with after every run to see what new stuff you unlocked. As for the story, it seems to be Ayla breaking into some sort of prison, planet/dimension with the intent of killing the self-proclaimed master and freeing everyone. So far, it really hasn't gripped me, but I appreciated the voiceover dialogue, which I thought was pretty good, but I was listening to it in Japanese, so I have no idea about the English. And I really liked each of the character portraits and some of the anime-style cutscenes that are done up in beautiful pixel art. And on top of that, there is co-op multiplayer, which I think is brilliant and would like to try at some point. Definitely want to come back to this one. Blacktail is an open-world adventure game which tells the origin story of the legendary Baba Yaga. You play as a young girl, Yaga, who's trying to find her sister and does so with the help of a witch in the woods. As mentioned, it's an open-world game that also has some slight survival crafting elements. Combat is done primarily through the use of your bow, along with the help of a good bit of magic to charge your shots. Because how can you be a witch without a little magic? There is a skill tree that expands Yaga's repertoire of things from potions to combat buffs to deeper pockets for holding on to your precious ingredients. These ingredients can be used to make the aforementioned potions, as well as crafting arrows and upgrading your skills. You'll find yourself collecting things almost every chance you get, which luckily isn't that intrusive to the overall gameplay loop. There's also a morality system, but everything seems to be very black and white. No morally gray choices to make here as far as I can tell. Help the evil ant queen, or don't. Free the bird trapped in the monstrous plant, or don't. Pretty obvious what you should be choosing depending on who you want Yaga to be. And I think this is done purposely. Everything in the world felt very storybook fantasy, which is what their Steam page implies it to be. After all, you are playing a character from legend. But there's also other typical things such as talking mushrooms and animals, and even the vibrant, saturated world brings the whimsical nature of the fantasy. I felt this game was alright in every category. Nothing stood out to me as being amazing, but at the same time, I felt compelled to keep going. If it looks even slightly interesting to you, then I'd say at least give it a go. Gotham Knights is a game set in Rocksteady's Arkham universe, only this time, Batman is dead. You take on the role of one of 4 characters being Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, or Red Hood. or play as all of them because the game lets you switch them up between nightly patrols. For a game that didn't do too hot in reviews on release and has a mixed rating on Steam, I actually didn't expect much. But I liked what I played. However, a part of that might be because I haven't really gotten too far into the grind for that incremental increase in gear score. That being said, this kind of brainless open world game is exactly the kind of thing that I like. Assassin's Creed does this all the time with a decent traversal system and a power fantasy where you just whoop anyone stupid enough to get in your way. Gotham Knights does the same thing. In my almost 2 hours playing, I tried out Nightwing and Batgirl, but unfortunately I didn't notice that much difference in the way they play other than they and their moves look different. You can unlock new moves for each that are unique to the character, so as they level up, supposedly they'll be more distinct. As far as the story goes, I think it's a strong first impression. I really like the epic opener of Batman's final fight, and the case that is now presented to the 4 young masked crusaders, investigating his death and what he was looking into that ultimately caused it. This game also has co-op with a friend, and I guess a special mode where you can participate in up to 4-player co-op, although I don't think that is the campaign itself. Either way, sounds like a fun time. I'm definitely eager to come back to this in the future. High on Life is a comedy first-person shooter from the mind of Justin Roiland, one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty, and features his voice as the talking gun, which is basically just Morty talking to you. Although, I wouldn't expect to see him in anything else now, but that's not really talking about the game anymore. In High on Life, you play a nameless and voiceless protagonist who you and your sister are whisked away to an alien city in order to escape a cartel that has decided to turn humanity into drugs. And there you start your life as a bounty hunter. While I actually liked Rick and Morty for the most part, I usually do find this humor to be pretty stupid. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there were moments in the game that made me chuckle, but most of the time I thought the humor was, yeah, stupid. And there's so much talking from the gun and everyone around you that a lot of the time someone gets cut off or they're talking over each other, making what they're saying unintelligible. I felt like maybe people needed to shut up every now and again. As a shooter, well, I liked the vibrant world, but the shooter mechanics were passable. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it wasn't horrible. Obviously, the main draw is supposed to be the humor. Normally, I'd say if you liked Rick and Morty, then you'll probably like this game, but I guess I liked Rick and Morty and only found this game okay. So, I don't know. I might come back to this one if I really want something different, but I sort of doubt it. Finally, we have Sifu, a high-octane kung fu fighting game where you take the role of someone getting revenge against a group of killers who took part in murdering your father. The primary focus for this game is, of course, the combat. Luckily, it's really cool with great choreography and animation. Although it is difficult, I was playing on normal difficulty and kept on dying again and again. The game throws a lot of stuff at you in the beginning with various moves, and I found it impossible to remember it all. Which is the point. The idea behind the combat is to learn it until it becomes muscle memory, and when it does, then you get a surge of satisfaction for mastering it. So death is inevitable. Although there is a story difficulty for those who want an easier experience. However, even when you do end up dying, it's not the end. Your character has a talisman that will bring them back to life at the cost of aging. You start at 20 years old, and when you die, it adds your death counter to your age. So if you died at 20, then you'd be 21, but then 23 on your next death. The death counter can be reduced, and I guess it doesn't go over 5 from what I've read, so it's not like you could lose something like 10 years all at once. Speaking of, every 10 years, you gain increased damage at the cost of some health, which can obviously help you clear enemies later on, as long as you're careful. Like I said though, I died a lot. My character was already in her 50s by the end of the first level. Every time you reach 70, you're dead, and you have to start the level over. This got me thinking how hard the game must be in the endgame, but luckily the devs thought of that. Apparently, you could replay levels, and if you do better than the last time, you can have a new starting age for subsequent levels. So the game rewards you for mastering the content by giving the player more chances in the final levels. Sifu has been something I've been wanting to play for a long while, so I'm pretty happy that it was in the choice this month, and I'm looking forward to going back to it. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Also, I'd be grateful if you could please give the video a like if you're enjoying it, because that really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm gods. Overall, this was a solid month. I don't feel it has a lot of really high-profile games that will turn heads, but it's a decent offering. Some weaker titles and some good ones, but nothing that missed the mark too bad. But without further ado, I'll get to the recommendations. For the must-plays this month, well, this one was a bit difficult for me. Ultimately, I felt that none of these games grabbed my attention so much that I would put them as a must-play for various reasons. But I guess that means we'll just move right along to the strong recommendations, which are Sifu, Astral Ascent, Gotham Knights, and Universe for Sale. Sifu was one of the possible contenders for must-play, but I decided against it just because I wondered how long people, or even myself, might want to stick with it because of the difficulty. There's a lot to master, but I have no doubt that it will be great if you can. Astral Ascent was another game I greatly enjoyed, but I'm not the biggest fan of roguelites, so I wasn't entirely sure how that might pan out longer than the hour I played it. But it did have fun gameplay even if the overall story wasn't the greatest. Some people might have gripes with me putting Gotham Knights here, but I liked what I played, and as I mentioned, I do like these open world games with checklists. I'm weird, I know, but maybe some others are the same way. Finally, Universe for Sale created a really interesting world and story. The gameplay may be lacking, but the length is short enough, at around 6 hours, that I think it wouldn't overstay its welcome. In the week recommendations, I placed the rest of the bundle, which were This Means Warp, Blacktail, High on Life, and Diluvian Ultra. This Means Warp is a fun idea for a game, but I'd only bother with it if you have friends to play with. Blacktail was a fairy tale open-world adventure that was decent, but I don't think it excelled at any one thing. High on Life's humor is definitely hit or miss with me, but the game seemed alright and I could see why people would enjoy it. Finally, Diluvian Ultra wasn't really for me, but it wasn't a bad game either, so I think I'd still recommend it to others if they were hardcore retro shooter fans and had played a vast majority of them already. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.